Are you wanting high-speed internet but don't have access to PUD fiber? Try Sky-Fi high-speed wireless internet from LocalTel. Call 888-8888 today.
Welcome to Let's Learn here on the NCW Life channel. I'm Eric Grandstrom, your host. And on this series of Let's Learn, we're talking about death. It's the one conversation that nobody wants to have, but it is a subject that's coming for us all either sooner or later. And during the course of this conversation, we're going to talk to folks from hospitals, we're going to talk to folks from Evergreen Memorial Cemetery. We're going to talk to folks with funeral homes, the whole gamut, everything we can discuss in a non-emotional way about death and dying. And joining us here today, I'm happy to have the Chelan County Coroner, Wayne Harris. Wayne,
Eric,
thanks for coming in and joining us on Let's Learn.
Glad to be here.
Tell me about how long have you been the coroner now?
I was appointed coroner in 2006. The previous coroner, Dr. Gina Fino, was a pathologist, and her husband got a job in Olympia, so she resigned, and the Republican committee became incumbent upon them to find a replacement, and they were tasked with finding 3 suitable candidates who they would present those 3 names to the county commissioners, and the county commissioners interviewed all 3 of us, and I was selected. That year I also ran for election against one of the candidates that wasn't selected, and so I've run unopposed ever since.
It seems such an odd thing for me for a coroner's position to be an elected position, but that's pretty pervasive, at least throughout Washington State.
It is. That's the standard, and I kind of asked that same question, and they said to me, it's elected because of the accountability.
Okay.
You're accountable to the citizens.
Sure.
You have control of county dollars for your budget, and it's an accountability process.
So you're a county employee then? Or how does that work? Being an elected position?
Yes, I am employed by the county of Chelan.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. But you cover a bigger area than just Chelan County, don't you?
No, I'm the only coroner in Chelan County.
Okay.
Yes. You've heard of medical examiners.
Yeah, that was my next question. What's the difference between a coroner and a medical examiner? So you don't do autopsies?
No, we have to hire those. We have to hire a forensic pathologist.
Mm-hmm.
We hire a forensic pathologist, and they come in and do the autopsies.
Okay.
A medical examiner in Washington is a forensic pathologist, but he oversees the entire medical examiner system, and that is in counties of 250,000 or more. And in Washington State, there's I think 5 or 6 counties that fit that.
Okay.
And they're under the county health department. That's the one that oversees them.
Seems to be quite the popular television genre right now, and it's pretty unrealistic. And that's kind of why I wanted to have you in too, is because for most people in this discussion with death, it's usually not something that they've dealt with personally. Right. It could be have touched them on the external, but not really close to them.
Right.
So our only exposure to death is either what we've heard of or what we see on TV.
That's right.
And a lot of times, well, most of the time what we see on TV is not anywhere close to reality. Because, okay, someone dies, and so, this discussion I had with the folks at the hospital is, I think it's, 60% of people who die in the hospital, or in some sort of hospice care or hospital care facility. So what happens next? Okay, well, then the coroner's called in, right? Because they need to look at the body and tell us the cause of death.
Yes.
Well, that's not the case.
Not always. There's certain conditions where we are called. We are called on all home deaths. So if somebody dies in a home or an assisted living facility, we get a phone call, whether it's from the paramedics, from the facility itself, or from the law enforcement who arrive at the scene. Most of the time, they're elderly folks that see a doctor, so they have a medical history, the doctor's attending them. The spouse may have gone in the next room to make breakfast, they come back and the spouse is deceased in the chair. Mm-hmm. Those are just phone calls, and we take the reports and then release the body to the funeral home. One of the most important things that the coroner has to do is make sure a death certificate gets signed.
Right.
And so we receive a lot of these phone calls. Emergency room deaths, we get called on all of those because a lot of times they don't have a doctor. They may be in an accident, so we have to sign death certificates where an accident has occurred. But we do take reports, and then we decide whether we're going to go to the scene and how we're going to proceed with the situation.
Your workload, and you said you've been the coroner since 2006.
Yes.
They got you help not too many years ago, did they, in your office because of, I guess, that kind of workload?
Yes, I had part-time deputy coroners that only did one weekend a month. And a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, I went to the commissioners and asked for a full-time chief deputy coroner, and they granted me one. So I'm on call every other week, and my chief deputy coroner, Earl Crow, was on call every other week.
So that goes back, Wayne, the conversation about the death certificate. I would
Yes.
imagine that if you're physically going out, I mean, you're on the run all the time then.
A lot of times, yes.
Do you have to actually physically sign off on that?
We do on a lot of them.
Okay.
We sign off on most homicides, suicides. Unattended deaths sometimes can be a natural death. There's cases where we go to the home and it's not clear why they died. If they're younger folks, they don't have a medical history. Most of the time we have to order an autopsy and to come up with a cause of death.
And that's the next thing,
Yes.
is that, okay, well, somebody dies, then automatically, and this is based on what we see on TV and the crime drama shows,
Yes.
is, well, automatically the coroner comes in and automatically there's an autopsy. Well, that's not the case, right?
No, the case is most of the time we receive a phone call, and then we decide if we're going to go to the scene and how we're going to proceed. But again, if they have a medical history, we make sure we contact their doctor, let them know individual passed away, will you sign the death certificate? 90% of the time or more, the doctor says, yes, I've seen that patient, I know what's going on, I'll sign it. We get somebody under 60 or under 50 that does not really have a significant medical history. They're found dead at home. We go to the scene, make sure there's no foul play. Actually, our job isn't really the scene. Law enforcement.
Yeah, that was my next question. Are you kind of a branch of law enforcement? Are you a branch of medicine? Where does the coroner fall? Or is it kind of its own?
Yeah, the coroner is considered an independent office. We have to know some medical knowledge, but we also know a little bit of investigative knowledge, but not too much, because the law enforcement will investigate the scene, we will investigate the body, and we compare notes while we're at the scene. For example, if there's a gunshot involved, then we have to talk to them about the trajectory, where it entered on the body, where it exited, and then they look at the walls or the ceiling and see where the projectile went, and then we make sure we have the right trajectory and determine if in fact it's a suicide or a homicide. And most of that they can kind of understand or know before we even arrive, but we just make sure we're all on the same page before we move the body.
Sure. Let's Learn here on the NCW Life channel. We're talking about death and dying. And joining us today on the topic is Chelan County Coroner Wayne Harris. We will take a break and come back with more right after this.
For all the latest news in North Central Washington, go to ncwlife.com or find us on Facebook. Got a news tip? Email us at news@ncwlife.com or call 888-2020.
Welcome back to Let's Learn here on the NCW Life channel. I'm your host, Eric Granstrom, and on this series of Let's Learn, we're talking about death and dying. And joining us here in studio today, we have the Chelan County Coroner, Wayne Harris. Wayne, training that went into it, I mean, you were selected for that position, but I mean, going back before that, you were a funeral home director, correct?
Correct. I went to University of Utah and majored in biology. After I was done with the university, I knew I wanted to get into funeral service. I had been working in funeral homes, so I went to Southern California, went to Cypress College of Mortuary Science, which was a year-long program, graduated from there, took the National Board exam for funeral directors and embalmers, and then I took the California and the Washington State exam, and I was licensed funeral director and embalmer for probably 15 years. And there's 2 or 3 other coroners in the state who were in the funeral service. It's a natural progression. We obviously deal with death and dying. We deal with the grieving families, and we work with coroners and medical examiners in the funeral service. So you kind of have a knowledge of what they do, and it just seems to be a natural progression.
And it seems like that would be an important background to have, considering that you're called out in a situation where somebody's passed away. Whether it's expected or not, it's still a difficult situation.
Absolutely.
To come into the scene, wherever the scene may be.
Yes.
And here you have someone who's passed away.
Yes.
And dealing with the emotions and the charge of that environment.
Yes, families are very, very emotional. Sometimes they can't respond to what you're asking them. For example, as a coroner, we have to notify somebody of a death of a loved one, and that's very difficult. I've seen people go from shock and don't have anything to say to just screaming and crying, falling on the ground, kicking things, throwing things. There's just a wide variety of emotions that go into notification of a death. And some of these CSI shows or even these forensic file crime shows, often detectives will say, well, they're not displaying the proper reaction for the death. And there is no proper reaction. Everybody's different. I've seen multiple types of emotions. And so that in and of itself should not be an indicator that somebody committed a murder.
Right. Is there automatic kick-ins for their need to be an autopsy performed?
Yes.
Violent, unexpected?
Yes. All homicides are automatic. All children age 12 months and younger are automatic autopsies.
And we should stop real quick there. A definition of a homicide is the death of a human. It's not necessarily an act of someone killing someone else. Right?
Yes, the definition is one individual taking another individual's life.
Okay.
There's justifiable homicide.
Right.
There's There is judicial homicide in the case of a incarcerated death penalty. That's the definition of homicide, is one taking another's life.
Okay. So what happens, and what's the time frame? I mean, here you have a body, you've got the family, whatever the case may be.
Yes.
You've got police involved, sheriffs involved,
Yes.
state patrol, whatever the case is
Yes.
there. Walk me through that process for you. I mean, you get the phone call, middle of the night, Wayne, we need you over
Yes.
here.
We usually get a call indicating there's a homicide. Most of the time we'll go to the scene after the detectives arrive, and they're kind of getting a briefing of what's going on from the road deputies or the Wenatchee police officers. We arrive just to listen, to gather information. Almost all of the time there will be an intense scene investigation. The Washington State Patrol Crime Lab will be called in usually, and that allows us to go home or go back to work and do what we're doing, because it will be several hours before the body is able to be moved.
As they say, process the scene.
Exactly.
Okay.
Process the scene, gather evidence. The State Crime Lab comes to assist with that. They also reconstruct the scene with three-dimensional lasers and cameras, and they need to know where the body is, where the head and the feet, so they can get an approximation. And then the body is not moved until we get the go-ahead to go in and roll the body, look at the body, document the evidence and the things, the bullet wounds, if there are any, or knife wounds. We try not to clean up the body too much, because Dr. Fino or whichever pathologist that we hire to do the autopsy needs to be able to look at those wounds as they are and make sure that they can interpret them correctly. I can kind of tell entrance and exits, but sometimes it's not as obvious as you would think. And that's where a forensically trained doctor or pathologist can tell the difference, depending on what they're sitting on, what their body is up against, shored up against on an exit wound. So we don't clean too much up. We just make sure and we take pictures. We want to get the pictures that as is, so that when the body is moved, put into refrigeration, we don't lose any evidence.
Okay, so you have the body somewhere here in the Wenatchee Valley.
Yes.
Where's it go?
Most of the time to the morgue at Central Washington Hospital.
Okay.
We have an agreement with them that we can use their facility for our autopsies. We pay them only when we do an autopsy in their facility. That fee covers the supplies that we use and the time that we're in there. X-rays are done by the X-ray techs, and we pay them also for X-rays.
How's that handled? Because, if you're in the hospital, and you're on one of the floors in the hospital, you're going to see people being wheeled to get X-rays. You're going to see people that are a patient that are alive. I don't imagine it would be it would be disconcerting for people to see somebody dead being wheeled down the hallway to X-ray. So is that done at a different place then?
Yes, it's done in the morgue.
Okay.
They have portable X-ray machines.
Okay.
They now have digital X-ray machines, so the machines come down to the morgue, and then whatever pathologist is doing the autopsy can actually look at the digital images and make sure that they get what they need.
Now, we've got the State Crime Lab is at Eastern Washington University, is it not?
Cheney.
Or
Yes,
Cheney,
it's in Cheney.
right. Okay. That's a very big place and a very busy place.
Yes.
The next part of that discussion always seems to be a toxicology report. Got to wait for the toxicology report
Yes.
to come back in. So what is that, and is that where it goes, or?
No, all of part of the delay in toxicology is the Washington State Patrol Toxicology Lab is in Seattle.
Okay.
And they do toxicology testing for not only autopsies, but they do for DUIs.
Oh.
And so when the toxicology samples get there, they go into a queue, they go in order, and the testing is done for all the DUIs, all the autopsies. And the thing that people don't realize, they run the test they run a blood test to try to determine if there are drugs in the system, in the blood. Then when they determine that, they run it again to quantify actually what is in the blood, what type of drug is in the blood. And then when they do that, they have to run it again to confirm what the analysis that they've received. So it takes several weeks to run a test for an individual.
And I think probably after the OJ trial, there's probably even more focus and spotlight on all of that handling that goes on, that starts from the scene, that goes to your, to the autopsy room, that goes to the lab and all of that. I suppose that's extreme scrutiny there, isn't it?
Yes, there's a form that we fill out, has a chain of custody who handles the toxicology. We mail it registered mail, so it stays locked up at all times. When it's received at the toxicology lab, they sign for it, and then we get a return card that tells us they received it, and they document who touches it the whole time it's there.
I want to talk, we're going to take a break here. We're going to talk more with Chelan County Coroner Wayne Harris coming up on Let's Learn about death certificates and about that autopsy and who can ask for one. We'll do that when we come back here on Let's Learn on the NCW Live channel.
Get the fastest internet available in North Central Washington by switching to LocalTel and get speeds up to 1,000 meg. Call 888-8888 today or go online to localtel.net.
Welcome back to Let's Learn here on the NCW Life channel. I'm your host, Eric Grandstrom, and joining me in the Death and Dying series, we have Chelan County Coroner Wayne Harris joining us in studio. Now, Wayne, we were talking about crime scenes and things like that. Are you called out also to traffic fatalities?
Yes, all fatalities we go to.
Okay.
And part of the reason, well, the main reason is we need to gather evidence and document the evidence, but also State Patrol and Fire Department, the fire crews that are there, or EMS that are there, they aren't trained, or that's not why they went into the type of work they do.
Right.
They're not comfortable or not used to handling and manipulating and moving bodies. That's what we're trained to do. So part of the reason we do go is to make sure the body gets identified properly, whether it's by driver's license or a witness that identifies the person. And then we put the body in a clean white sheet and in a body bag to transport to wherever we take them for either an autopsy or an external examination.
We're talking about the autopsies and,
Yes.
and what kicks that in. Can a family, of someone who dies, can they say, hey, we want an autopsy done? And if so, who pays for that?
Okay, usually all autopsies are obviously paid by the county. We have to be careful with when we order one, and we're using taxpayer dollars. So if a family wants an autopsy on, say, an obvious automobile accident, unless there's an extenuating circumstance that we're not aware of, we don't do an autopsy. If the State Patrol tells us why the vehicle went off the road, speed was a factor, or something to that effect, and it's very obvious why they died, we won't do an autopsy. If the State Patrol says we don't know why they went off the road, there's no skid marks, everything looked normal, no witnesses saw them driving erratic, if they're an older person, we may do an autopsy to find out if they had a heart attack prior to going off the road.
Sure.
But
And what does that mean? So you get the autopsy back,
yes.
and then that allows you to then do the death certificate? Is that correct? You can't do that until you have the autopsy, or how does that work?
If we don't know the cause of death, recently we had a death where there may have been 3 or 4 different medical issues going on. We can't just grab out of the air. The individual may or may not have an established medical history, medical records. We can't really rely on those. We just can't grab something out of the air, so we have to come up with a cause of death. A lot of times, if people are hiking and they fall and there's no physical injuries on them, we had a case where the family was Jewish and they didn't want an autopsy, and we explained to them, based on the state law, we have to have a cause of death. We can't just guess. And they were okay with that. There's been times where religious objection, and sometimes we can't do that. But talking to the family and explaining what's happening is a big help to them, for them to know. Another advantage of an autopsy, not only coming up with the cause of death, but often things are revealed that are genetic sicknesses or genetic heart problems that family didn't know about.
Sure.
So we'll contact them after we're done with the autopsy and say, have your other children tested. This individual had a genetic heart disease or heart problem. So that's nice. But families, they don't pay for those.
Okay.
Yeah, if the autopsy is requested and ordered by the coroner, the county pays for it. The families are not obligated.
Okay. All right. So what happens to the body after you're done? After next of kin have been notified, that's the thing we hear all the time. So what happens then?
Then we usually find out what funeral home they want to use, and if we do an autopsy, we'll release to that funeral home when we're done. If there's no autopsy and we feel like we have to do an external examination, like it's obvious why they died, we still have to document injuries and tattoos and marks and identifying features on that individual. We document everything, we photograph everything, and when we're finished, then we release the body to the funeral home that the family selects.
I guess, the whole identification, sometimes they're alone. Sometimes they die alone.
Yes.
And sometimes there is no family that you can find, or a wallet laying there or something like that you can help identify them with.
Yes, we've had to rely on dental x-rays before. We've had to rely on fingerprints, and in rare cases, we've had to rely on DNA. There's been times where one person I had, he had a stolen wallet, and it was an automobile accident. He looked very similar to the decedent, and so I reached out to the family, and it was the wrong family.
Oh wow!
But they got back to me and said, no, my brother's here in the room, and he said the wallet was stolen, so somebody was using his identification. So that was a difficult situation.
Who do you talk to? I mean, because dealing with death all the time, and now you went from a funeral home, director to doing this. That's not an easy thing, is it?
No, but in my career in the funeral industry, I've had to learn to compartmentalize my emotions. I've had to learn to leave work at work and go home and live my life. I have great empathy for families who lose a loved one, but I can't think of the reality of what's happening, or I'll crack. I can't.
Yeah.
I mean, on the surface, I can understand that they've lost a loved one, but I can't dwell on it and see how many people it's affected. So I try to play racquetball and ride a mountain bike and do things that get rid of that energy. Sure. But I'm very understanding and compassionate for people that lose a loved one.
From your perspective, coming from the background being in the funeral home business to being in the business of being a coroner now for so many years, how important and what's the message you would give to people to have conversations about death long before it happens?
It's important that they let their family know what their wishes are. It's important that they have legal paperwork laid out so that the family or the next of kin knows where their money is, where their finances are. If they have a prearranged, prepaid funeral arrangement, let the family know about that. Things will run a lot smoother if that happens.
And especially if you have a spokesperson for the person who's passed away.
Yes.
To talk to you, to talk to funeral homes, to talk to the cemetery, everybody else, so that there's the one person that can be kind of the, I guess, settling voice in it all.
Yes. It's surprising how many people don't address that issue, and the time comes and mom or dad or grandma and grandpa are in their 80s and the family's never talked about a funeral home, and it's difficult for them to have to decide that at the time.
Yeah. Can people call your office if they have questions about
Absolutely.
what's happening with the coroner?
Yes, 509-667-6431. I have a website through the county, and they can email me. If, as a public official, I'm accessible to the public. They can call or ask any questions.
Thanks for doing this.
You're welcome. You bet. Thank you.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Wayne Harris, the Chelan County Coroner, joining us here on Let's Learn on the NCW Life Channel. That's going to wrap it up for this episode. Be sure and join us again as we continue our topic on death and dying here on Let's Learn.
Is your vehicle in need of a quick oil change or tune-up before hitting the road this summer? Stop by Quick Lube and Tune, the home of the good guys at 610 South Wenatchee Avenue.